It's Silver Age time again. Today, questionable Silver Age time. No, not because Superman is making out with a mysterious heroine on the cover. That happens a decent amount, but because of who that person is. The twist of this story. It goes places. You'll never recover. Well, you probably will, but you may need a shower. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and this isn't cursed panels. It's more just stories to look back on and ponder. But why though? Because it's interesting to look at these things both in the context of their time and in how they sit now. I love looking back at classic comics. There's no point in casting all of it aside, just as there's no point in elevating every single thing to a masterwork. There's peaks and valleys, in-betweens, and it's really interesting to see where things sit in their different eras and potentially how they came about, why, that kind of thing. This one just so happens to fall into the questionable category. We've also covered some hidden gems. This just is not one of them. So that's enough build-up. Let's examine this. The story we're about to look at is called Mighty Maid. It's from Action Comics 260 and the year 1959. So early Silver Age fare. While it's drawn by Al Plastino, the writer is harder to track down. Now this can happen, especially in the early Silver Age and the Golden Age, but with this one, it may be because no one wanted to claim it. Some say this is Otto Binder, some say it's Jerry Siegel. The point is, whoever wrote it, it exists, and we're gonna take a look at it. You can hazard some guesses though if you want, because we've looked at a decent amount of stories written by both those authors, so if you feel that it's either of them or neither, let me know. Now the mystery of Mighty Maid is meant to be the hook, as well as that tease of Lois having to struggle with her romantic feelings. You can tell this because the cover challenges the reader with, "You'll never guess who Mighty Maid is." Well, you may have put it together, or some of you may already know. So I will raise you, why is Mighty Maid? You'll never guess why she is. A different tagline. Lois is heartbroken about Superman finding love with another superpowered being. That is already a running theme at this time, that's the reason that Lois can't be with Superman, because if she was with him as a mortal, she would constantly be in danger. She'd be jeopardizing his mission. He'd always be worried. And the narration loves to taunt her about it, and this is no exception. Poor Lois Lane. For years, the girl reporter has had her heart set upon becoming Mrs. Superman, but now, suddenly, like a ghastly nightmare come true, a beautiful super rival flies into Superman's life and sends all of Lois's romantic dreams crashing. The rival? Mighty Maid. Mighty Maid needs to work on that costume. It is just a dress with a cape. At least put an M on it somewhere. 2 if you're feeling fancy. Also, MM, Mighty Maid, the relationship was doomed from the start, no matter who it was. And you may be saying, but that's her hero name. But look, listen, in the Silver Age, sometimes they'll play upon this joke, they know about it, and so they'll pull in characters like Lex Luthor or Lightning Lad, and Lightning Lad is his hero name. So if we're counting that, we're gonna count Mighty Maid. And yes, I know that Lex's first name is Alex, but at this point, it's not. I actually have a timeline for that. Let me know if you'd be interested in that video. If you're genuinely curious, let me know, because I think it's interesting. Now, the story opens on Lois in danger, as always. She's in the tornado belt, and twisters, they're a-coming. Once he hears this, Clark uses his telescopic vision and confirms that yes, Lois is indeed in peril once again. And he was just about to go on vacation. No vacation for Superman. Presently, as the twister strikes, I'd be even more scared if I wasn't sure that Superman will zip to the rescue as usual. I hope. Lois is saved, but it's not by Superman, but by Legasp, a woman who also saves her car. That was nice of her. But Lois doesn't care about that. She cares about the fact that Superman, who also showed up to save her, but is late, is hitting it off with Mighty Maid, which right away, for the eagle-eyed or those who pick up on details, they may already be able to glean who that means she is. Now, Mighty Maid explains that she's from another dimension, the 4th dimension, and that on her world, Superman is famous and that she's really into him. And then she's all over him. As a matter of fact, I received special permission to cross the dimensional barrier so I can meet you. Normally, we rarely attempt the dangerous crossing. I'm flattered. I wanted to learn firsthand if you're as wonderful as reported. Frankly, I'm not disappointed. The hussy, she's shamelessly throwing herself at him, and Superman is lapping it up. Welcome to the world of 3 dimensions, Mighty Maid. May I show you some of the scenic wonders of this world? I'd love that. I'll bet she would. He can show her the world, but I don't really want him to. Superman's face in the hussy panel, he's so done. The plan has gone too far. Also, Lois is not one to talk about shamelessly throwing oneself at Superman. The only one allowed to be a hussy around Superman is her. Downheartedly, Lois heads for the nearest telephone. It was positively sickening the way he drooled over Mighty Maid, like a schoolboy. Is she the type of woman he always wanted? Is that why he never married me? It's a slow news week in Metropolis / well, he is their local hero. And so Perry says that if they can follow this romance, it might increase their newspaper circulation. That is a concern. It'd be even more of a concern now. And this panel here, it's really important. Put a pin in it. Soon, at the famous Taj Mahal in India. Beautiful, isn't it? Yes. His eyes are beautiful. The thought balloon. Put a pin in it. It's the thought balloon we're looking at. Now we get to see a couple more panels of them alone and her gushing over him. I do like the line, "Tell me about your mind, the heart behind the super muscles." Who is the man behind the muscles? I never thought I'd be so overwhelmed by any woman. He's gonna kiss her. Superman is in love. Laughing, Mighty Maid dashes off, but the ardent Man of Steel overtakes her above Milwaukee and... Yow, what a picture! This will mean a promotion for me for sure! That's not Jimmy. Not our precious Jimmy. Perry is very concerned about scooping all these other newspapers who were getting exclusive pictures and the like of Superman making out with his girlfriend, and so he enlists Lois. He knows that Lois and Superman have a special relationship. He says they're good friends. Either he's very unobservant or just very cruel. He wants Lois to use her connection to Superman to be there when he proposes. Be an eyewitness. Lois actually asks if he has rocks in his head, which I love. Perry probably would have retaliated, but Superman shows up to say he was eavesdropping and he would love it if Lois could third wheel his proposal. It'll be even more romantic that way as he's crushing her heart. And so at a beach party for two, plus Lois, but she doesn't get any of the hot dogs and lemonade. He proposes, but the worst is yet to come. Lois, who has always wanted to become Mrs. Superman herself, is forced to witness another woman receive the happiness for which she has always longed. Mighty Maid, will you marry me? Yes, darling, yes. Lois, in tears, congratulates them and flees, saying she has to write the story up. Superman says that women sure do get emotional about sentimental scenes and cry about such things. Not as if he didn't know that she was in love with him or anything. Women and their tears when they're betrayed. True Superman, but it's Lois's breaking heart that is making her cry. Oh, Superman. I'm not super like Mighty Maid. I'm just an ordinary woman, but I love you, and I'd have made you a wonderful wife. Why couldn't it have been me? But the hits just keep on coming, and this one's to Earth. Superman makes an announcement that he's leaving for the 4th dimension. I don't know. That's pretty close to the 5th dimension. Him and Mixie will be neighbors. Oh, and he's leaving all his robots to the FBI, and they all have his powers, so it's all good. People should be more concerned about that, but that's not what Lois gets out of this announcement. This gives her an idea. Superman's always gaslighting her. It must be that. How silly of me not to have thought of it sooner. This must be one of Superman's clever hoaxes, which he's carrying out for some secret reason. Mighty Maid is one of Superman's robots, and I know just how to prove it. I genuinely wish that Mighty Maid was one of Superman's robots. Lois isn't wrong about the scheming part. She knows Superman that well, but no, she's not a robot. She tries to get Mighty Maid stuck to a giant electromagnet, but that of course does not work. And then she gets pitied by Mighty Maid, which is just painful. And then Superman and Mighty Maid go off to the 4th dimension. But now it's time for our reveal. And so we see in an underwater cavern. Nice going, Mighty Maid. You may unmask now. And become my real self again? Good. Off comes brunette wig, makeup, false legs, and padding, revealing Supergirl, alias Linda Lee. Padding? Where is the padding? I don't want to know where the padding was. Yes, it was Supergirl the whole time. His cousin. Huzzah! You have fine dramatic ability, Linda. You portrayed the role of Mighty Maid very believably. Thank you, Cousin Superman. And the way you made us seem to disappear with the help of concealed blinding lights activated by a time mechanism was very effective, as was my exposition. So yes, we have Supergirl in a scenario that was engineered by him that she felt she had to go along with, roped into posing as his love interest for his scheme, the cousin he left in an orphanage, whom she has said that she feels beholden to and that she owes everything to, who will see that she feels she needs to ask things like if she can be adopted or not. There's a code. The code's out here oftentimes covering nonsense, and then we have things like this that just right underneath it. Now this story is a kind of classic for this time, which is Superman needs to save the Earth and he needs to conceal how he's doing it, and so he acts out of character in some way to do so. And then the fun of these stories is meant to be the ooh, why is it happening or how is it happening kind of reveal and explanation. And you usually need something big to justify the ruse, because he usually goes pretty hard, as he has in this case as well. The story will also endeavor to trick the reader sometimes, like this one does with the thought balloon. The thought balloon is interesting here because it's part of the misdirect that ends up going too hard, because while its function is clear narratively to try and preserve the mystery, after the reveal, knowing it's Supergirl makes it odd. So why did he have to do this? He had to save the world from aliens. Different aliens than him and Supergirl. Superman was hearing voices and determined that they were coming from a ship millions of miles from Earth that was on the way to destroy it, specifically because he lived there. They were going to destroy the Earth because they knew they couldn't destroy him because he was invulnerable, and they just wanted to hurt him because they had beef with Krypton. Because years ago on Krypton shot down some of their ships as they were passing by. Why? It's explained later that it's because Krypton thought that they were hostile, but they don't say that at first. It just looks like they just shot them down. Superman learns what happened later from the people in the bottle city of Kandor. Now, these aliens vowed to kill every Kryptonian, and so when they saw Krypton blow up, they also saw his rocket leave. I guess they missed the Brainiac stealing the city part, but they vow that they're going to take down this infant later at some point. They got stuff to do. It took them a while to get to it. I see. They have come to make good that vow. But why didn't you fight them in space and save Earth?
I don't want to harm them. From their point of view, there is reason for their anger.
Now, yes, this is all good explanations, but can we get to the point where the only plan to solve this was that she had to pretend to be his love interest? Why was that the only plan he had? They're never going to explain that. Now, these aliens couldn't see underwater. It's a pretty big flaw in their sensors that they have not bothered to fix, despite how much of the Earth is covered in it. And so this is how Superman hatched his scheme to pretend to leave the Earth in another dimension and really hide under the water. And he figured that then the aliens would just not destroy Earth because what would be the point? He's not there anymore. I argue that they could still destroy it in case he ever decided to come back and then would see that it was gone, and then that would still hurt him, but they're not going down that path. Now, this answers nothing about the whole you need to pretend to be my love interest part of this plan and why it could not have been a robot. I know she was his secret weapon at this point and that may be part of the reasoning, but let us go on. There are other solutions, like she could have shown up in disguise and pretended that she was from a dimension that needed him, and Superman, being the good hero that he is, goes off to help and then reveals that he's gonna have to stay there. He could have pretended to be killed or sucked into another dimension, and so they would be tricked into thinking there was no point in coming there. She could also have been a secret weapon in that. She could have pretended to be the being that kills him. Those are just a couple of ideas off the top of the head. Feel free to leave yours. How it comes across is that this is just self-explanatory. Of course this would be the plan, because this way he gets to mess with Lois and he gets to kiss his cousin. Something that they come back to more than once. This could have been a video compiling multiple instances of this. Now, as for the aliens, they're headed back to their world in suspended animation. So he leaves them a note to read when they get back. It's gonna take them a little while to get there, actually a long while to get there. Dear aliens, sorry about my people. It was an accident. My bad. Let's let bygones be bygones. Please don't come back. No, what it actually says is that the Kryptonians fought them off mistakenly because they thought they were being attacked, and he hopes that they'll read this note and just forgive them. And so with the mission complete, it means it's time for Supergirl to go back to the orphanage, which she doesn't want to do. She's talking about how she had a great time out there helping him. She doesn't want it to end. It was thrilling, as she says. She loved pretending to be Mighty Maid. The fake dates, the proposals, just anything to get out of the orphanage, please. And if that wasn't already uncomfortable, she's crying as she begs him to leave. Please, cousin Superman, can I leave Midvale Orphanage now? I'm tired of mild secret adventures. I want...
Not yet, Linda. At present, you're my secret weapon. No one but me knows you exist. If kryptonite ever destroys me, you can carry on. I know it's hard, but be patient.
I'll call you next time I need someone to make out with as a secret weapon, or to cure Jimmy by making out with him, because that's how she cured him from being a wolfman. Then he just reappears in Metropolis as Lois is falling off of a building. I guess she thought her time was up. Later, as Lois accidentally falls off a new building she has been inspecting. Superman, back on Earth, but what about the fourth dimension? Your bride. Also, thanks for saving me, I guess.
We didn't marry after all. I learned people age earlier in her world. She was too young for me. She was only 15 years old. That's true. Supergirl is 15 years old. Thanks for highlighting that story and making it more uncomfortable.
Then there's still a chance for me. Lois be like, aha, no ring. Now one could read some telegraphing by naming the character Mighty Maid, because now many know the character has had the nickname Maid of Might. However, on panel, I didn't see her referred to as such before this story, inside a story or in the letters column. Not which I'd read, which was all the appearances she'd had up to that point, which were only in Action Comics, and she debuted in Action Comics 252, and we were here at issue 260. Now I may have missed it, but there may be some retroactive association being cast back as a reader coming from stories at a time when the nickname was used and is known. There is also the potential I didn't miss anything, which again I could have, and that this issue 260 could have been the catalyst for that nickname. I'm feeling fairly confident that she hadn't been called the Maid of Might before this. However, if it's the case that she was, then this name is telegraphing, and if it's not, it retroactively ends up working that way. The answer being surprise incest is rarely what I'm expecting unless I'm reading or watching some kind of gothic romance. Let's keep it over there to the VC Andrews things. Now the structure of this story is fairly standard as mentioned for the time. Superman needs to save the Earth from a secret threat and has to deceive the people around him to do so. And then the creativity comes from how exactly does he do that? And the story is creative in the whole reveal of the secret aliens with a vendetta against Kryptonians and Superman in particular. Supergirl did arrive in issue 252 and was set up as a secret weapon. And she had had some stories where she had had to pretend to be other people. So the idea of enlisting Supergirl has the groundwork laid for it. And you do also have the standard Lois thinking that somebody else is honing honing in on her Superman territory. Someone trying to get on her toxic relationship with Superman? No, that territory belongs to her and Lana. Superpowered girls need to step up. However, what makes this one stand out is the taboo it engages in having Supergirl be the pretend love interest on two levels, because not only is she his cousin, but she's underage. And he knows this. These stories do tend to go off the rails sometimes, but this decision for it to be Supergirl is deliberate, and it comes across as incredibly awkward, particularly through a modern lens, though I imagine it would come through that way a bit so at the time as well. While that kind of relationship was still something that would happen in 1959, it was being phased out, was viewed as taboo in many instances. It was illegal in over half of the states by that point, and I can see some people reading it even at the time and going, ick. And I can also see some people reading it and not thinking too much into it and just accepting it as a standard story beat. However, there's some other layers to it that make it read as questionable, just in terms of how Supergirl is positioned at the time and how beholden she is to Superman and how desperate she is for his permission to leave the orphanage. It just doesn't create the greatest dynamic or look for Superman if one looks at it through that kind of lens or examines it or thinks it through on an emotional level or a different context than just the straight up adventure as it is presented. It's the begging at the end and the hammering home of her being underage. This is one of those types of stories that people tend to discuss when they talk about just tossing all the Silver Age out, which is definitely not something I agree with. This is in and of itself a fascinating instance. It's not the norm for these stories, and so because of that, it ends up standing out. The messing with Lois and deceiving his friends, that's the norm. But the fake out Supergirl romance she feels compelled to do is a bit different. It is interesting to explore some of these stories that just from the time period of now just don't work anymore and kind of explore how they sit and what there is to be pulled from. Most people tend to analyze the orphanage scenario and kind of recontextualize some of the elements of that can use some expansion in terms of what it might have done to Supergirl emotionally, which is something that not everybody enjoys revisiting, or they feel that they're being unfair to the stories of that time. So let me know how you feel about that. However, it is something that isn't fully mined in its time, so there are things to pull forward. And that's definitely something I would rather be pulled forward than Superman trying to make out with his cousin. Even this story, as mentioned, has its creative moments. It's just the incest element that moves it from being the usual zany fun to something else. As mentioned, I genuinely wish that Mighty Maid had been one of its robots, although then you have to deal with how Superman treats his robots, which is terribly. Supergirl does too, but she probably learned that from him. Or maybe all Kryptonians just treat the robots terribly. I was working on something else Supergirl related, which is how this story came up, and then I just needed to give it a long form examination because it stays with you, and I do think it is interesting, even if it's potentially not the most pleasant read in comparison to some other Silver Age fare, because there are some gems back there, and then there are some stories like this. As always, pros and cons, peaks and valleys, but it all comes together and forms a tapestry of the comics of the time and is foundational in some ways. It's just some elements are left and some elements are pulled. Now my brain is free, and let me know what you think of this story. Now, whenever I talk about stories like this, there are people who discuss presentism or the idea of just ignoring such stories, and so I'm very curious what kind of discussions or thoughts these stories bring up for you. Feel free to discuss, hopefully cordially, down below. I love the Silver Age, and we're of course going to keep talking about it, and of course many other comics, because there's just so many exciting things happening. So please talk to me, hit that like button, do the YouTube things, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day spent discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.